don't think I've ever seen a singular shoe make so much noise at a world major marathon and not make the podium, but that's exactly what Puma did with this shoe. Today, we're reviewing the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 3. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Like I said, today we're going to be reviewing the R3 from Puma. And if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, as far as disclaimers and disclosures go, there are none with this shoe. I did buy it with my own money on the limited drop. That being said, I have been provided shoes before by Puma, but anytime that I've been provided shoes for review, I'm never paid. No one gives me talk tracks, talking points, no one watches the videos beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of this shoe. Now, the Fast R Nitro Elite 3 is going to be your marathon racing shoe from Puma. It is a premier super shoe, and Puma has a couple of different super shoes. So you have the Deviate Nitro 3 Elite, which is kind of what I would say like their 5K to marathon. It's marketed as a super shoe, but the Fast R line is really more of like their premium super shoe line, the same way that Nike has the Vaporfly and the Alphafly. Saucony has the Endorphin Pro versus the Endorphin Elite, and many other brands have similar setups. As such, this shoe is made to go fast and far, and that's how we're going to be evaluating it today. Now, from a price standpoint, the shoe comes in at $300, which for that premium tier of super shoe, it's kind of become standard, which is a little bit wild to think about. It seems like just yesterday that super shoes were just over the $200 mark, but we have indeed hit that $300 mark, and there are some that are coming in the $500 range as well. Then from a specs perspective, that's where the shoe starts to get really, really wild though. So the shoe comes in at 6.0 ounces, which is 170 grams. So it's incredibly light. In fact, it's in line with a lot of the like super premium, like the Adios Evo or Adios Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1 from Adidas, which was the singular marathon optimized racing shoe for $500, pretty much in that same weight range, and coming in at $300. So really, really kind of wild at what Puma's doing here with the weight. Then from a stack standpoint, you have 39 in the heel, 31 in the forefoot for an 8mm heel to toe drop, so kind of the higher end of mid drop or lower end of high drop. And obviously with world athletic standards, it does meet legal use for competition. As I said, it was used by many pros at the Boston Marathon. Now from a fit perspective, I would say that the shoe fits true to size lengthwise, but then does fit fairly narrow throughout. So narrow in the heel, narrow in the midfoot, and maybe more standard, let's call it, in the toe box. When compared to some other Puma models though that I've used in the past, specifically the Velocity Nitro 2 or 3, you have Velocity Nitro 3 and the Deviate Nitro 3, it does seem to fit a little bit more accommodating because Puma tends to run very, very narrow. Now moving to the upper of the shoe, this is again where the shoe is really insane. So you can see through the shoe. It is so breathable, so lightweight. It feels almost paper thin. It is an ultra weave from Puma. And then you have power tape overlays in different areas that need to be reinforced. So kind of on the laces there, a little bit on the tongue there in the heel area. Now you do get actually a little bit of light padding there in the heel, which is really, really nice. With a shoe this light, you're sacrificing weight everywhere, obviously. So I would have expected it honestly to be a little bit more flimsy, but like it feels pretty strong, pretty durable. The cushioning there in the heel is nice and comfortable. The one place where it feels kind of janky is just with the tongue. So the tongue is very, very like it's really thin, like paper thin. It's not gusseted, and it just kind of flaps around, and it does fold in. So it will bunch unless you kind of pull it apart when you're putting on the shoe. But what's nice, even though it's not fully gusseted, the laces run through the tongue in various places, which allow it to stay put. So the tongue doesn't really move anywhere. So it almost acts as if it is gusseted. And then the shoe is narrow enough that really there's no shifting in the upper, no shifting in the shoe whatsoever. I felt the lockdown was really, really good. And you have those premium laces that allow you to lock that lacing system in place as well. So very, very pleasantly surprised, given the weight of the shoe, how structured the upper is. In comparison, again, to the Pro Evo 1, that upper felt flimsy. Like, it didn't tear apart. It was durable enough, but it like for someone who is not 140 pounds, 150 pounds, like I was a little bit concerned wearing that shoe, and I feel no concern wearing the shoe whatsoever. The heel counter is really comfortable. It locks you in place. There's no uncomfortable chafing, rubbing anywhere in the shoe, at least for me. And honestly, like the upper fit's really, really nice. So very pleasantly surprised with that. Now moving to the midsole, this is where it gets kind of crazy. So you have the Nitro foam, which in this shoe is actually a TPU. So we're seeing some shoes, super shoes, go away from Puma. Puma was kind of the super shoe foam that has been used for basically since the introduction of the Vaporfly, and everyone kind of was using it. And then I feel like this year we're really starting to see some people move away. So Adidas and Saucony have gone with TPEE, Puma's going with ATPU, right? Really just, we're seeing a shift to this because it's supposed to be, you know, these TPEE and ATPU, they're supposed to be a little bit more durable. They're supposed to last a little bit longer and be a little bit more resilient. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. Now in the midsole, the foam is soft. Like it doesn't collapse, like it's not overly squishy. You can see like I can compress it, right? But it's not like, you know, it's not like the TPEE in the Adios Pro 4 or the Endorphin Elite, which is like just like super, super soft and super, super mushy unless you're running really fast. This feels a lot more like, you know, it's soft, it's comfortable, but it's not just gonna straight up give out underneath you. And so what I found is the shoe is surprisingly stable. Another element of this is that the carbon fiber plate, you can see it kind of runs from here and it runs down, and this actually, that's the carbon fiber plate right there. So it actually comes down and it extends out past the toe. So this whole area here, closer to the ground, is fairly wide, and then you actually have the carbon fiber plate very close to the ground here, which in addition, I think adds a little bit of stability to the shoe. So it looks like it might be a little bit unstable, especially there in the medial side with that cutout. So, you know, I'm not recommending this for, you know, over pronators by any means. I just expected it to be incredibly unstable, and I found it to be very smooth. Actually, it's not even, I wouldn't call it snappy, I wouldn't call it punchy, I wouldn't call it bouncy, I would just call it very smooth and fast. Like, you know, is this the fastest shoe that I've ever worn? I don't know, right? But it's definitely up there, and I do think it's jumping to the top of my super shoe rankings for 2025 so far. So, you know, this heel cutout here does prevent you from having an aggressive heel strike, even if you are a heel striker. You just kind of roll through, and then this carbon fiber plate that extends past the rest of the shoe, it almost like launches you forward. So really, I do feel like you kind of get up there, and it gives you that extra toe off, that extra propulsion there at the end. The shoe feels incredibly fast. The foam, again, is soft yet supportive, not overly squishy. It has a lot of energy return. Pace versatility wise, it feels more comfortable, obviously, at faster paces. But honestly, I you know, when I'm reviewing a super shoe, I do warm up in it sometimes too, just to get a general feel. And I gotta tell you, like, it still felt really good just warming up. So even at slower paces, which for me were, you know, starting out like 10-minute, cutting pretty quickly down to about 9-minute pace, 9-minute miles, like it felt really, really smooth and really comfortable, and got more stable as I sped up, but still felt very stable underfoot. One thing to note, Puma actually paid for an independent study where they brought in an exercise scientist to analyze the gait patterns and the running economy essentially of pro runners in this shoe compared to the Alphafly 3 and the Adios Pro Evo 1. So both of Adidas and Nike's premier super shoes. And typically when you optimize a super shoe, or when you do these running economy tests, you see a couple of things, right? Everyone's running economy tends to improve in super shoes in general for that pro group. But more often than not, each pro will kind of have a different shoe that they're best in, right? Most economic in, because it better fits their foot strike and their stride pattern, right? Their gait. In this study, again, paid by Puma, so you can take it with a grain of salt, but the exercise scientist that they hired, if I understand correctly, if I've heard correctly, it is the exercise science who did the original Vaporfly 4% study. So it's the same guy who determined that the Vaporfly made runners 4% more efficient, and what they found was runners were 3% more efficient in the Fast R3 when compared to the Alphafly and the Adios Pro Evo 1. So they weren't comparing to like baseline normal shoes, all of these runners were better in the Fast R3. And again, like, does that mean everyone, like literally everyone, is going to be better in this shoe? Not necessarily, but maybe it's a placebo, maybe it's not. I feel really, really fast in the shoe, and I've really, really enjoyed the shoe as a whole. Another thing to kind of talk about is that, you know, typically when creating a shoe, comfort is kind of in mind, but Puma apparently just tried to make the geometry the most efficient running shoe, period, for running. So they didn't try and optimize for a certain type of foot strike or anything like that. They just basically said, hey, based off of our calculations, what is going to be the most efficient geometry? And this is what they came up with. So there might be something there, and I'll be really curious to see if any other brands kind of come at Puma. I don't know if they have a patent on this design with the carbon fiber plate extending, so maybe that's why we haven't seen anyone try it, because this is the 3rd edition that they're doing it on. But really, really curious, because I was frankly like blown away by the midsole experience of this shoe. Now moving to the outsole, Puma is already well known for Puma grip. You can see I actually need to clean that. It looks like I stepped maybe on some gum or something, but Puma grip is one of the grippiest, like best, stickiest outsoles that you can typically get. And this is a thinner compound overall compared to other Puma grip models, but it gets the job done. You know, when I'm walking on the floor downstairs before I head out for my run, it squeaks on the ground and it grips the road very, very well. So all in all, just phenomenal overall grip. I think it will do great on wet surfaces, though I haven't tested it on it, but I have tested it on my treadmill at an incline, which sometimes can get a little bit slick, especially when I sweat. Has not been an issue whatsoever so far. So all in all, very, very impressed by the shoe. Now, as far as who's it for, according to Puma, it's for everyone, right? I do think, given its price point though, and kind of its crazy overall geometry, this is for, you know, runners who are trying to PR and are maybe pushing a faster overall limit. I don't know if there's a certain threshold for that. For what it's worth, you know, my goal is a sub 3 marathon, and if I had to go out and run one right now, I'd probably be sub 3:15, maybe sub 3:10. But I don't think I could throw down a sub 3 in the next month or two. I'd have to, maybe after a block. But anyway, I feel really comfortable in the shoe, right? If that's worth anything to you guys who are maybe trying to compare your pace to mine. But again, pace isn't the only factor, right? Strides are different, foot strikes are different, overall gait patterns are going to be different per each runner. But everyone that I know who has tried this shoe has been pretty blown away. And like, maybe it's hype, but I believe the hype in this shoe. So, you know, who's it not for? Well, it's not a daily trainer. And I think at this point, if you watch my channel, you know that I am against using plated shoes on a daily basis. You know, I use them 2 times a week usually, maybe 3, depending on what my workout is on Saturday. But I try and keep it to 2 if possible, because really you don't want to expose your feet to that. You know, while the plate can help you be more efficient, it also transfers the load to different parts of your feet and lower limbs, which can cause some issues. So it's not a daily use shoe. You know, I would say it's probably going to be better suited for those who are a little bit faster, but again, what is fast? Who knows? So, just some final thoughts on the shoe. Really, like, I was curious. I wasn't sure how I was going to like the shoe. I mean, I expected to enjoy it. A lot of running shoe reviewers had Puma on their top rankings for super shoes last year, and I didn't get to try any of their super shoes last year. So this is my first experience with a Puma super shoe, right? I've tried one of their super trainers. I've tried one of their lightweight trainers, was very impressed, but the super shoe really, really blew me away. So, you know, it has skyrocketed to my #1 in 2025, which is #2. TBD, right? We'll see. I really have liked the Adios Pro 4, the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 as well. Those are probably 2 and 3 in, you know, or maybe 2A and 2B. But I actually will be testing the Adios Pro Evo 2, which should be arriving in the next few days as well, which will be similar to this shoe in terms of weight and kind of hype overall. So we'll have to do a comparison once I've gotten some miles on that shoe. But all in all, Puma is really pushing the boundaries. It's cool to see this kind of innovation and this kind of hype come from a brand other than Nike. I feel like Nike kind of still dominates the super shoe mind, right? When people think super shoes, you're still thinking Vaporfly, Alphafly, but there's plenty of really, really good super shoes out there. It's just like the Alphafly 3 still breaking records, and then you have the Adios Pro Evo line, which is also breaking some records. So those seem to be like the cream of the crop. Adios, Adidas Adios Pro Evo 1 and 2, Alpha Fly 3, but I think that the Fast R3 is really, really kind of jumping onto the scene and is going to find itself on a lot of feet of runners who are looking to PR. So if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you enjoyed. Let me know what I can do better to make these videos more enjoyable, more entertaining for each and every one of you. And if you've also gotten this far and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. And as always, we'll finish out with a question, which is, do you believe the hype? Is this actually the fastest shoe on the market? If not, which one is? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.